Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Hey, everybody, come on in. It's time for Coffee with Scott Adams. Yes, it's a good time. Aren't you glad you're here? All the good stuff's going to happen here in a moment. Yeah, this will be one of the best coffees with Scott Adams. And all you need is, well, not much, really. Doesn't take much. Just a cup or a mug or a glass, a tankard, chalice or stein, a canteen, jug or flask, a vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid, I like coffee. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure, the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better, including riots. It's called the simultaneous sip, and it happens now. Go. Delightful. So I woke up this morning to some trolling from Tom Arnold. It's weird to be a little bit famous like me, because you have encounters with other people who are a little bit famous. And so Tom Arnold came after me, and he used the "so" attack, where you start your tweet with "so." I guess you're saying, and it doesn't matter what comes after the word "so." Everything that comes after the word "so" can just be ignored, because the word "so" says whatever that follows is going to be a misinterpretation of your opinion, followed by a snarky comment on my own misinterpretation of your opinion. So rather than try to interact with people like that, I just tweet it and note it as the "so" tell for, a tell as an indicator for, I know, you're just looking at my cat behind me. You stopped watching me completely as soon as the cat walked by. Anyway, it's the "so" tell for cognitive dissonance. So Tom Arnold is not what I'd call a good debater. So it looks like the Trump strategy for winning the presidency is, and this isn't funny, but it is. I've said this before in my own defense. There are things that make me laugh that aren't funny, meaning that it's something bad happening to somebody, and there's nothing funny about bad things happening to somebody. But sometimes they make you laugh under just the right conditions. I'm not proud of it, but here's one of those cases. It appears that Trump's strategy for winning the election is to let the Democrats burn down their own stuff. Because they seem to think, the people on the left, well, first of all, the Democrats believe that the protesters are on their side. Okay, that's the first funny part. The protesters are not on the Democrat side. Now, that should be obvious by the fact that they've surrounded Mayor Ted Wheeler's apartment and set it on fire. It's not funny. There's nothing funny about setting somebody's apartment on fire. That would be the worst tragedy ever. So I'm not laughing. But so the Democrats believe that they're helping to protect the people who are literally trapping them in their homes and setting them on fire. and they're thinking, well, maybe this strategy doesn't sound so good on paper, but let us play this out a little bit. give us a little space. We can make this work. and Trump is just sitting back there saying, I got a whole army. If you want, we can start with the National Guard, but if that's not enough, I've got a whole army. You just have to say, send them in. Because, I'm no dictator. I'm not some kind of authoritarian despot. I can't just send in military. Can't do that. So you're going to have to ask me. Just checking with you again. Would you like to ask me? And because they can't do anything that he wants them to do, it's just impossible. They just can't agree with him. It's the most diabolical trap I've ever seen, because what makes it good is it preys on their own stupidity, but it does it in a public way. The public is looking at this and saying, wait, I didn't catch the part about why you don't want the federal help to stop an enormous problem. I wasn't catching the reason? Oh, I get it. When the law enforcement comes in sufficient numbers to make a problem go away, it makes it worse. That's their argument. That if you make a problem go away, it makes it worse. I guess. So the president has the Democrats in this impossible kill box. I mean, there's just no way out. So they've decided to try to chew through the wall, because they're totally trapped in this, backing domestic terrorism. And every time one of the leaders of like Black Lives Matter or one of the organizers says something on the streets that gets recorded, something like, they really want to kill all the police, or they're going to burn down everything. And you can see you can just imagine all the Democrats thinking, oh, we backed the wrong team. Maybe we should have done a little research before we went all in on the protesters. So the president has them in this total kill box. They're trying to chew through the wall, as has been widely reported. They're trying to go from, there's no riots here, to, hey, these must be Donald Trump's riots that are happening entirely in Democratic-led cities, and that's what we're promising to give you more of. More of the stuff that Trump can stop in an hour if you just ask. You just have to ask. So the fact that the Democrats are burning down their own stuff to try to win this election is, I don't know, it just seems funny to me. So I had an experiment. I've told you before, I have one friend in particular who will just argue to the end of the earth that Trump is Orange Man bad. And I've tried to not engage him because the TDS is just off the chart. Like, you can't really deal with him. But the thing that fascinates me is that he's a very rational, very smart, higher IQ than mine, I would think, and well informed for citizens in general. But of course, he's well informed in that Democrat way. The Democrat way of being well informed is to not know anything because they only watch the fake news, which they are sure is real news, which is funny. It's like what they're watching professional wrestling, and they're saying, no, that's real. That professional wrestling you see up there, I know people say it's fake, but I'm looking right at it with my own eyes. I mean, look at it. It's obviously real. And of course, the Republicans are saying, you're saying that professional wrestling is real? Because just look at it. It's obviously not real. If you're an adult, just look at it. And the Democrats say, I am looking at it with my own eyes. That's obviously real. So this weird world we're in where the Democrats think that their fake news is actually real news. Now, of course, I believe the fake news comes from both the left and the right. So don't put me in the box that says fake news is only coming from one direction, because that's not the box I'm in. Somebody's mentioning Jim Gaffigan. I told you I met Jim Gaffigan a few times, and he was a great guy, but I had to just block him and delete him from my life for going full TDS. Anyway, so I talked to my friend who's so smart, and I tried to convince him that he was only watching fake news. So I started talking him out of the Fine People hoax. And I would send him the transcript. I would show him, sending various people debunking it. And finally, I actually got him to understand that the most central part of his belief system, the Fine People hoax, didn't happen. I actually accomplished that. I didn't think it could be done, but remember, I told you I'm dealing with somebody who is hyper-rational, super smart. So I thought under that specific condition, I should be able to break through if I just keep hammering on this. And actually succeeded in convincing him that the Fine People hoax didn't happen. Then I had to go to work on the drinking bleach hoax. Hello?
Hello?
I don't know who that was. So I convinced him that the drinking bleach thing was fake too. So now just try to hold this in your mind. I now convinced him that his two biggest belief systems about why the president wouldn't be good for coronavirus and his racial thoughts, the two biggest things were fake news. And I got through. I actually made that case and was successful with lots of sources. So then he was angry at me because he saw a clip, somebody sent him a clip of me apparently believing that Joe Biden was satanic. Now, those of you who've been watching me know that that was a trick that I played. Let's call it a public demonstration in which I said something that I knew would be turned into fake news through the same editing trick as the Fine People hoax and the drinking bleach hoax, which is you just take off the clarifying part. So I made sure the clarifying part could be easily deleted, and it was. So sure enough, I became national news, at the B-level news. It never reached the highest levels. But it became a big news story. My friend saw it and said, "What's this craziness about you believing there's a satanic connection?" And then I showed him the video in which I had explained the entire trick from the original showing that I had said, I don't believe in any of this. It's just confirmation bias. Then I showed him how I planned to have it taken out of context. It was, and it was a good demonstration. Do you know what he said? He said that I had embarrassed him. I had embarrassed him because the people who had contacted him had met me through him sometime in the past, and therefore it was embarrassing to him to be associated with me, wait for it, because the fake news had taken something that wasn't bad in any way and turned it into fake news that he knew was fake news, but his friends didn't, and so it was embarrassing to him, and so I'm kind of a jerk. Nothing about this is even close to a rational situation. And then, of course, as you know, it always doubles back to, but there weren't any fine people at the Charlottesville. And then I always go back to the top and I say, all right, this will be the third or fourth time I've said the following thing that you pretend I've never said. And I'll say it again. And I will predict, and this is how I finally ended the conversation, I think. I said, I predict that by tomorrow, you're going to pretend I didn't say what I'm going to say right now, which is it doesn't matter who was there at Charlottesville. Because the president stated his assumption of who was there, spoke to his assumption that there were some people who were not racist, who just liked the monuments. That might be true. It might be false. It is irrelevant whether it's true or false, because the only person who checked on it was me. Nobody else checked on it. So if he was wrong, he was just wrong about an assumption, which was actually a completely reasonable assumption, which I later validated personally by talking to attendees that he was right. Now, even if he was wrong, doesn't make any difference because he spoke to his assumption. And the whole point is, what were you thinking when you said it? That's the point. What were you thinking? And what he was thinking is determined by his assumption, which he stated. So by predicting that he would forget that again in 24 hours, I think it caused him to not pretend he forgot it in 24 hours. So I think that was my breakthrough. I'm not sure. So we got protests in D.C. We had police shot a allegedly armed black man. I think killed him, and yeah, they did kill him. So L.A. is erupting. So you got L.A., D.C., Portland. And here's the interesting part. Rand Paul and the president are both suggesting that there are out-of-town agitators, and if we could find out who's funding them, somebody's going to be in a lot of trouble. And do you think we don't know yet who is funding the people that Trump alleged came in on airplanes, and Rand Paul said they had a change of clothes? So it's like they know something already that they're not ready to tell the public, or it's not confirmed, I suppose. But I think we're going to find out something interesting there. So some of you are guessing Soros. I'm going to guess, I'm going to be a contrarian. I wouldn't say it's impossible. I wouldn't say it's impossible that George Soros funded an organization that funded some people to travel and protest. That feels like it could have been, possibly. But I think we're going to find somebody else. I don't know who. I don't have a hypothesis, but I think you're going to find somebody else. I would extend that to say that the tiki torch guys who were marching in Charlottesville, I don't think they were organic either. They were a little bit too good for the camera, if you know what I mean. And why have we never seen anybody who looked kind of like that group, the tiki torch guys? Never saw them before, anybody who looked or presented themselves that way. Never seen it since. Would you say that the neo-Nazis all went away after that day? Or would you say that they lost interest in any kind of public display? Lots of questions. So I would guess that what we're seeing now is not completely organic. It's definitely not organic. The trolls that are coming after me and other people online are definitely not organic. Those are coordinated. We know that. And I think Charlottesville was some kind of an operation. I don't know entirely, but there was something going on there. The big story today is that Trump was that they alleged that Trump went to Walter Reed some time ago, and that Pence was put on alert that he could be in charge, depending on what happened there. And there's rumors from the insiders that, oh, how interesting, we don't know the names of the anonymous sources. Well, as you know, anonymous sources are never wrong, right? There is nothing less reliable than an anonymous source in the White House. That is the least, it's got to be the least credible source of any information. But they're saying that they think he had some mini strokes. And then there's a video of him appearing to slur his words. Now, I sent the video around and asked if it looked doctored, and people said no. At least one expert said, nope, not doctored. It does look like he either had some dental work that day. He definitely was slurring his speech. There's no doubt about that. But it looks like it was more like dental work. There certainly doesn't seem to be anything wrong with him at the moment. We've watched the president in public, continuously and extensively for months. I haven't seen any problem. So we shall keep an eye on that, but it sounds more like an election year thing that you say is more of a response because Biden is falling apart. Rasmussen, the Rasmussen Report polling company, they continue to entertain me by noting that their competitors went silent after the Republican convention. They just stopped publishing their polls for a while. Don't know why. They just stopped publishing. Could it be? Could it be because the polls are so favorable relative to what they were for Trump. Could it be? Because the ones who aren't publishing are the ones that we know are sort of Trump unfriendly, if you know what I mean. So I think that part is hilarious. That's a lot of dogs not barking right now. Everything that we're seeing now seems to be what I call word thinking, where you simply replace the words that fit with your own words, and then you act like you said something. For example, when Kyle Rittenhouse shot 3 people in Kenosha, how is that being described? Well, if you don't like Republicans, you say he was a vigilante, or no, you say he was a militia member or a white supremacist. There's no indication he was either of those things, no evidence of either of those things. And you say that he killed 2 protesters. So if you're CNN, that's what he is. He's a militia member or a white supremacist, and he killed 2 protesters. Those poor innocent protesters. Or if you're a Republican, you say he was a patriot who went there to protect people and property, brought his own medical gear to help protesters in case they got shot, and 3 separate people attacked him, and he shot them in self-defense. So he was neither a vigilante, he wasn't going there to hurt anybody. He was actually going there to reduce the amount of damage and maybe the amount of death, because he literally brought medical equipment with him to help. And he even stopped to see if he could help the guy he shot. So, he was closer to a Boy Scout than a white supremacist who wants to go shoot people. But that's the world we live in, where Kyle is now, for all practical purposes, he's a political prisoner, wouldn't you say? Wouldn't you say that Kyle is a political prisoner at this point? Because the video is pretty clear that he was being chased and was at great bodily risk immediately before he's shooting. I mean, it's right on the video. You can just see it. Now, the question about the legality of the gun, according to his lawyer who was on Tucker last night, the gun did not cross state lines. He does have a right to have it. It's open carry. It was legal. Apparently, it was a legal firearm that he had legal right to have in his possession. Now, it may not have been a good idea, which is a separate question. But what we know so far is that no crime was even close to being committed. If you take reasonable doubt as a standard. Because the video, it has, at the very least, even if you were the most anti-Kyle person in the world, you'd have to admit that the video, at the very least, shows a massive amount of doubt about what happened. And that's all you need to be innocent, if there's doubt. And I would say that my interpretation is that it went beyond doubt, and that it's obvious that it was self-defense. It's just obvious if you watch the videos. But videos lie, so maybe there's something we don't know. The most ridiculous story is this one about the finding that maybe only 6% of the coronavirus deaths in this country were from people who had no comorbidities. And in fact, they usually had 2 or 3 if they died. Now, people are hailing this as a big insight that changes everything. I don't understand that. This is exactly what I thought was the situation. What did you think was the situation? I thought the situation was if you had comorbidities, you'd be in trouble. If you didn't, you wouldn't be in that much trouble. The risk was low. Did this change anything? I think people are taking the 6% to mean more than it means. Because the whole point of it is that we live in a country where there are just tens of millions of people who have comorbidities. What are they going to do? Stay home? If you just took people who are overweight and said, all right, only the overweight people have to stay home and everybody else can go about their business, that would still be 2/3 of adults. They'd have to stay home. Isn't it? Something like 2/3 of adults are heavier than they need to be, and then you throw in anything else that they might have, like hypertension. I've got 2 comorbidities. I'm 63, probably in better shape than 99% of people my age, and even I have 2 comorbidities. So it's so common, I don't know that it changes anything compared to what we thought was the situation. J.P. Morgan is warning people, or alerting them, I guess, that they should be prepared for the rising odds of a Trump win. So they're looking at all the trends and saying, if these trends continue, it looks like it's Trump all the way. So I would argue that the stock market has already built that in. So the predicted model has totally closed the gap to almost statistical tie. The stock market is clearly voting in favor of a Trump win. That's obvious. And now J.P. Morgan is saying it directly. All right. I have an opinion that mental slavery is one of the worst outcomes from systemic racism. And it goes like this. It's been said, people have made the analogy that the black vote usually goes for the Democrats, so that's some kind of a plantation thing. People like to use that imagery. I find that a little offensive, the plantation part of it anyway. So I don't like to use the plantation part. If you're black, you can say that. If you're not black, maybe stay away from that plantation word. It just feels a little icky and inappropriate. But I would say that one of the outcomes of systemic racism that is just 100% a big problem is the school systems not being adequate. And of course, it's the teachers' unions that are the cause of all the problems. And because the teachers' unions perpetuate bad education by removing competition, which would allow it to improve, you end up with black citizens who are undereducated compared to what we would all like to see, a better situation. And I think that also allows them to be duped by Democrats a little bit easier. In other words, your total level of education is one of the things that can protect you. As I said with my other example of my highly educated, smart friend, it took a lot of convincing to convince him that he was watching fake news. But suppose you had a much lower level of education. It would be a lot harder to convince you that you were being fooled. And so the Democrats take advantage of that situation to feed the black voters ridiculous version of reality in which they're trapped in this world they can't get out of, and it's somebody else's fault, I guess. But Kanye, to pick a classic example, or somebody like Sowell, economist Sowell, or Candace Owens, have seen through the illusion, and they can see the open door. And they can see that, okay, sure, maybe not every door is open to every black person in every situation. It's an imperfect system. We need to fix all that stuff too. But there is an open door. If white people have 3 doors and black people have 1 or 2, you can still all get out. You can still all get out, and because you got a door. Now your door is different than my door maybe, but everybody's got a door. And if you can't see the door, somebody is blinding you to it. And that's the mental slavery part, is that so right now you're seeing the protesters seemingly in favor of no police protection. That's just a lack of education, isn't it? Anybody who is in favor of getting rid of police protection, it's hard to see that as a philosophy. That's not a political opinion. That is just an educational failure, I would say. So a lot of what the protesters are asking for are things that if they got them, it would be the worst thing that could possibly happen. it would be the end of everything. And they don't know that. And I think education has a big role in that. Yeah, Thomas Sowell is someone who could see the open door better than most. Larry Elder, another good example. Yeah. All right. Somebody says not necessarily, but I don't know who you're talking about. All right, that's. I don't have much else to say today. It's going to be just a lit, totally crazy week. Somebody says their door is locked. All right, I don't have much else today. But as everybody has noted, this next few months are just going to be so full of news. It's going to be crazy. But it looks like for the moment, the Trump campaign is just going to let the Democrats have their way, which is burn up their own stuff until there's nothing left. And they think they'll win with that. Maybe. Anything's possible. All right, I'll talk to you later.